6 feet of earth couldn't silence a queen. I'm clawing through wet soil, my fingernails splitting against roots and stones, like nature's giving me one last middle finger. The taste of grave dirt fills my mouth, earthy, bitter, with just a hint of, congratulations, you're supposed to be dead. Lightning splits the sky above my makeshift grave, and I catch a glimpse of my reflection in a puddle. Mud-caked face, wild silver-streaked hair, and oh, look. The golden circlet is still embedded in my skull because apparently even death can't separate me from my crown. 3 days ago, I was Princess Lorali Valdris, heir to the throne, beloved by my people, and engaged to Prince Kale. You know, the whole fairy tale package. Then came my wedding day. Picture this. I'm standing at the altar in my gorgeous white gown, about to seal a peace treaty with my marriage, when arrows start flying like it's some twisted archery competition. Guests screaming, blood pooling on marble, the whole 9 yards of wedding disaster. And here's the kicker. Everyone thought enemy assassins crashed my party. But in those final moments, as I'm supposedly dying heroically, I see the truth. My own brother Marcus lowering his bow with that, "Oops, did I do that?" expression. My stepmother Regent Ilara giving him a satisfied nod from the balcony like she's watching her favorite play. And my beloved fiancé Kale, he's wiping poison off his blade with the kind of casual efficiency that says, I've done this before. They staged the whole thing, made me look like a martyr who died protecting others. The kingdom mourned their brave princess while these 3 parasites divided up my inheritance like kids splitting Halloween candy. Marcus got my crown, Alara seized the treasury, and Kale went home with territorial concessions that would have taken years of war to negotiate. Perfect crime, right? Except for one tiny detail, they buried me alive, not dead. Now I'm standing in a thunderstorm surrounded by silver mist that whispers secrets I don't want to hear. And the voices of dead queens are offering me powers that come with more strings attached than a marionette convention. But here's what they don't know yet. Princess Lorali died in that grave. What crawled out is something else entirely. And I'm pissed. The first thing you learn about supernatural powers, they come with a user manual written by sadistic ghosts who think cryptic warnings count as helpful instructions. Child of 2 crowns, beware the path of vengeance, whispers Queen Morwen, my great-great-grandmother, as I stumble through the forest. Her ghostly form flickers like a broken TV signal. The dead who seek justice become the very evil they fought. Yeah, well, the living who tried to murder me became the very evil I'm about to destroy. I mutter, wringing grave water from my hair. So I'd say we're even. The other spirits cluster around me, a whole lineup of dead royalty with their glowing eyes and terrible fashion sense. They're all very concerned about my soul, apparently. Too bad none of them were concerned enough to prevent me from being buried alive in the first place. I catch my reflection in a stream and nearly jump out of my own skin. My dark hair now has silver streaks running through it like lightning. And my eyes? They're doing this weird glowing thing in the darkness. Great, I look like the poster child for things that go bump in the night. But the changes aren't just cosmetic. I can feel things now, emotions, thoughts, futures dancing at the edge of my consciousness like moths around a flame. When I focus on the castle in the distance, images flash through my mind. Marcus pacing in my father's old study, sweat beading on his forehead as he practices his coronation speech. His thoughts are a jumbled mess of guilt and terror. What if she's not really dead? What if someone finds out? What if... Stop, I whisper, pressing my palms against my temples. The connection breaks, leaving me gasping. Queen Morwen drifts closer. The sight comes with a price, child. Each glimpse of minds and futures binds you deeper to our realm. Fantastic. Add it to my tab. I need shelter, allies, and a plan that doesn't involve me looking like an extra from a horror movie. The abandoned watchtower on the East Ridge should work, assuming it's still there and not crawling with whatever creatures Marcus has hunting for my killer. The walk takes 2 hours, but it gives me time to test my new abilities. Reading minds is like tuning a radio. Lots of static until you find the right frequency. The future sight is trickier, showing me fragments that might be tomorrow or might be wishful thinking. But it's the third power that really gets my attention. When I focus on a dead rabbit I find on the path, I can sense its fading life force, the echo of its last moments. And when I reach out with my mind, the rabbit's eyes snap open and it sits up. Okay, that's deeply disturbing, I tell Queen Morwen, who's looking disapproving in that special way only dead relatives can manage. Necromancy is forbidden, she says sternly. That path leads only to blah blah, corruption of the soul, blah blah, eternal damnation. I wave her off as the rabbit hops away, apparently none the worse for its brief resurrection. Look, I didn't ask for a supernatural ethics lecture. I asked for powers to reclaim my throne. You asked for nothing. We gave because the realm requires balance. And the realm's about to get it, just not the kind you're expecting. The watchtower is exactly as I remember it. Crumbling stone, questionable structural integrity, and a view of the castle that makes you feel like you're watching your own life from the outside. Perfect for brooding dramatically while plotting revenge. I'm attempting to start a fire with wet wood and mounting frustration when I hear footsteps on the spiral stairs. My hand goes to the knife I lifted from a bandit's corpse. Don't ask. But then a familiar voice drifts up. If there's some ghost haunting this place, I've got nothing left worth haunting for. Tobias, my old stable master, the man who taught me how to ride and who used to sneak me extra honey cakes when I was 10. He appears at the top of the stairs looking like he's aged 5 years in the past 3 days. His clothes are torn, his gray beard unkempt, and there's a hopelessness in his eyes that makes my chest tight. Tobias? He spins around, eyes widening as he takes in my appearance. Princess, no, it can't be. They buried you. I saw the funeral. Yeah, well, reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. I step into the moonlight streaming through a broken window. It's me, Tobias. Though I'm apparently going through some kind of supernatural adolescence phase. He stares for a long moment, then sinks onto a broken crate. They blamed me, you know. Said I failed to protect you. Stripped me of my position. Threw me out of the castle like garbage. His voice cracks. 40 years of service, and they made me responsible for your death. The rage that flares in my chest is immediate and burning. I can feel the spirits recoil from its intensity, but I don't care. Marcus did that. The regent's orders. Said I was too old, too slow. Should have seen the attack coming. He looks up at me with watery eyes. But you're alive. How are you alive? Instead of explaining about vengeful spirits and resurrection powers, I decide to prove my identity the traditional way. I reach into his mind, sifting through his memories until I find what I need. Remember when I was 12 and tried to train that wild stallion behind your back? I ask softly. You found me in the mud, covered in hoof prints, and instead of telling father, you taught me how to approach him properly. You said a true horseman respects the animal's spirit. Tobias's eyes fill with tears. Little liar, you always were too stubborn for your own good. And you always called me that when I was being particularly stupid. I kneel beside him. I need your help, Tobias. There's more going on than just my murder. The kingdom is in danger. What can an old stable hand do against... The vision hits me like a slap to the face. Images flash through my mind. My younger sister Mira kneeling in a stone cell, chains around her wrists, while a tall figure in religious robes speaks in hushed tones. But Mira isn't struggling. She's nodding, agreeing, her eyes glazed with fanatical fervor. My sister! I gasp, gripping Tobias's arm. Mira isn't safe in the convent. She's being held by religious extremists who want to use her as a puppet ruler. How can you possibly know? Because the dead tell excellent gossip. I stand, pacing the small space. My uncle Valdris is involved, the High Inquisitor. He's convinced Mira that my death was divine punishment for my secular ways, and that she's the chosen one destined to purify the kingdom. Tobias shakes his head. That's madness. Mira's just a child. She's 16, old enough to be manipulated into believing she's saving everyone's souls. Another fragment of vision. Mira addressing a crowd of religious zealots, speaking about cleansing the kingdom of heretics. And she genuinely believes it, Tobias. They're drugging her communion wine, but the faith is real. Even if that's true, what can we do? I'm homeless. You're supposed to be dead. And yet, here we are, very much alive and very much pissed off. I turn to face him, and I can see him flinch at whatever he sees in my glowing eyes. I'm not the same princess who got buried 3 days ago. I have abilities now, advantages they don't know about, but I need people I can trust. He studies my face for a long moment. What are you asking me to do? Help me save my sister. Help me reclaim my throne. Help me stop whatever's coming that made my murder just the opening move in a larger game. And if I say no, I could push into his mind, make him agree, bind his will to mine. The power is right there, eager to be used. But Tobias deserves better than that. Then I'll do it alone, I say simply. But I'd rather do it with the man who taught me that respecting someone's spirit is the first rule of leadership. He's quiet for so long, I think he's going to refuse. Then he stands, brushing dust off his torn clothes. 40 years I served your family. Guess I can manage a few more. He extends his hand. What's the plan, princess? I shake his hand, and for the first time since clawing out of my grave, I smile. First, we get you cleaned up and fed. Then we figure out how to infiltrate a religious compound without starting a holy war. And after that, my smile turns sharp. After that, we remind my dear brother that some crowns are earned through blood, and I'm about to collect on a debt 3 days overdue. Turns out, infiltrating the capital city when you're supposed to be dead is easier than you'd think. People see what they expect to see, and nobody expects a murdered princess to be browsing the market for information and questionably legal weapons. I've traded my muddy burial dress for peasant clothes Tobias borrowed from a clothesline, bound my silver-streaked hair under a dark hood, and adopted the slouched posture of someone who's had their dreams systematically crushed by life. Basically, I look like half the population these days. The changes Marcus has made in just 3 days are impressive. And by impressive, I mean absolutely terrifying. More guards than usual, Tobias mutters as we pass another patrol. And look at their faces. They're scared. He's right. The soldiers move with the twitchy alertness of people expecting attack from any direction. When I brush against one man's mind, I catch fragments. Orders to arrest anyone asking questions about the princess. Rumors of foreign spies. Something big coming. They know something's wrong, I tell Tobias quietly. Marcus might be king now, but he's not exactly inspiring confidence. We find a spot near the fountain where merchants gather to trade gossip along with goods. Time to test just how much I can learn with my shiny new mind-reading abilities. The baker's wife is thinking about her husband's affair with the seamstress. Boring. The cloth merchant is worried about a shipment that should have arrived yesterday. Potentially useful. The old woman selling herbs has information that makes my blood freeze. 3 more ships arrived last night. That makes 15 total. Won't be long now before Prince Kale's soldiers. 15 ships? I whisper, focusing harder on her thoughts. Told to keep quiet about the foreign soldiers camping in the woods. Payment's good enough to buy silence, but something feels wrong. Princess wouldn't have wanted this. I grab Tobias's arm and steer him away from the crowd before I do something stupid, like start demanding answers from an old woman who thinks I'm dead. What is it? He asks when we're safely tucked behind a blacksmith shop. Kale's already moving troops into position. 15 ships worth of soldiers camping in our forests. The pieces are clicking together in my mind like a very disturbing puzzle. The wedding wasn't just about killing me, it was about timing. They needed me dead before the invasion started. Invasion, but the peace treaty was never meant to be honored. They played us, Tobias. All of us. I lean against the stone wall, feeling suddenly exhausted. How long do you think we have before they make their move? Before he can answer, another vision slams into me. This one's stronger than the others, more vivid. The throne room filled with armed men wearing Kale's colors. Marcus kneeling before Kale, offering up the crown. But there's something else. Figures in dark robes standing in the shadows, watching with eyes that glow like mine. One of them steps forward, and I can see his face. Uncle Valdris, but wrong somehow. Ancient. Hungry. The blood of the twice-born, he says, voice echoing with inhuman harmonics. Soon we will have what we need. The vision cuts off, leaving me gasping and shaking. Lear, what did you see? We're all being played, I whisper. Marcus, Kale, even Uncle Valdris. There's something else behind this, something that needed me to die and come back. They're not just planning an invasion, they're planning to use my resurrection for some kind of ritual. The dead queens materialize around us, their forms more solid now, more urgent. She begins to understand, Queen Morwen says gravely. But understanding and acceptance are different paths, child. The cult of the shadowless god, adds another queen, one I don't recognize. They have waited centuries for a twice-born royal. Your death was not murder, it was sacrifice preparation. Wonderful, so I crawled out of my grave just to become some demon's lunch. I push away from the wall, pacing in the narrow alley. Any other cheerful revelations you'd like to share? Your sister knows, Queen Morwen says quietly. Part of her mind remains unclouded by their drugs. She aids them willingly because she believes your sacrifice will save the kingdom from corruption. That stops me cold. She knows I'm supposed to be used in a demonic ritual and she's okay with it. She believes the demon will cleanse the realm of sin, that your death, your true death, will herald a new age of purity. I feel something crack inside my chest. Not my ribs this time, but something deeper. The last bit of naive hope that my family might still be savable. Tobias, I say, and my voice sounds strange even to me. Remember what you said about respecting an animal's spirit? Of course. What do you do when the animal's spirit is broken? When kindness won't work? He's quiet for a moment, studying my face with growing concern. Sometimes you have to break them completely before you can rebuild them. Good. I turn toward the castle, visible beyond the city walls. Because I'm done trying to save people who don't want to be saved. Time for a different approach. The dead queens recoil as something dark and cold settles over my thoughts. But I don't care about their warnings anymore. My family chose their sides. My kingdom chose its king. My sister chose her god. Now I choose mine, and I choose power. The holy sanctuary of divine redemption sits on a hill like a stone middle finger pointed at heaven. All gray walls and narrow windows, built more for keeping people in than keeping evil out. Perfect place for brainwashing teenagers in the name of religious purity. This is a terrible idea, Tobias mutters as we approach the main gate. We should wait, plan better. Plans are for people who have time. I adjust the religious habit I liberated from a laundry line. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? They figure out I'm a resurrected princess with supernatural powers and try to burn me at the stake? That's actually exactly what I'm worried about. Then try to keep up with the optimism, old man. The guard at the gate barely glances at us, just another pair of pilgrims seeking spiritual guidance. Or in my case, seeking my brainwashed sister so I can undo 16 years of love and trust in one conversation. Should be fun. The inside of the sanctuary is exactly what you'd expect. Stone corridors that echo with whispered prayers, the smell of incense thick enough to choke on, and enough religious iconography to make even the gods nervous. But there's something else underneath the pious atmosphere, a wrongness that makes my skin crawl. I brush against the minds of passing monks and nuns, searching for information about Mira. Most of their thoughts are the usual religious drivel, but then I hit something different. The chosen vessel grows stronger each day. Soon she will be ready for the final revelation. High Inquisitor says the twice-born sister must be prepared carefully. One mistake and we lose our leverage. Poor child doesn't know what she's truly agreeing to. But the greater good requires... This way, I whisper to Tobias, following the mental threads toward the sanctuary's heart. We find her in what used to be a chapel, but now looks more like a throne room. Mira sits on an ornate chair, dressed in white robes that make her look like a cross between an angel and a sacrifice. She's listening intently to Uncle Valdris, who's pacing before her with the kind of animated enthusiasm reserved for true believers and dangerous madmen. Cleanse the kingdom of the secular corruption that led to your sister's downfall, he's saying. She was weak, child, seduced by worldly power instead of serving the divine will. My sister nods solemnly. I understand, Uncle. Lirali's death was a lesson we must heed. Indeed, and when the time comes, you will have the strength to do what she could not, to sacrifice everything for the greater good. I step out of the shadows, pushing back my hood. Hello, Mira. The reaction is immediate and not at all what I hoped for. Instead of joy or relief, my sister's face goes white with terror. She scrambles backward in her chair, pressing herself against the armrest like I'm some kind of monster, which, to be fair, I probably am now. No, she whispers, you're dead. I saw them bury you. Yeah, about that. I take a step closer and she flinches. Turns out being murdered by your own family is the kind of thing that sticks with a girl, even after death. Uncle Valdris recovers from his shock faster than I expected. His hand goes to a pendant at his throat, and suddenly the air fills with that same wrongness I felt in the corridors, but amplified. Abomination, he hisses. Unholy thing wearing my niece's face. You will not corrupt this sacred child with your presence. Corrupt? I laugh, and the sound echoes strangely in the stone chamber. Uncle, I hate to break it to you, but I'm not the one filling a 16-year-old's head with delusions about divine missions and holy sacrifice. Mira, he says urgently, not taking his eyes off me. You see how the demon speaks with her voice? How it tries to twist truth into lies? This is why your sister fell. She listened to such whispers. I'm not a demon, Mira. I focus on her thoughts, trying to find some crack in the conditioning. I'm your sister. Remember when you were 8 and had nightmares about the monsters under your bed? I used to sneak into your room and tell you stories until you fell asleep. For a moment, something flickers in her eyes. A ghost of recognition, of the bond we used to share. But then Uncle Valdris speaks again. The corruption runs deep. It remembers our Lorelai's memories to deceive you. His voice carries an odd resonance now, almost hypnotic. But you are protected, child. The wine of communion has opened your eyes to truth. And there it is, the source of her compliance. Not just drugs, but some kind of supernatural influence. The pendant at his throat is glowing faintly, and I can feel power radiating from it. Not divine power, something much older and hungrier. You're not just brainwashing her, I say, understanding flooding through me. You're preparing her to be a vessel, just like they prepared me. The chosen vessel must be pure, he agrees, no longer bothering to hide his true nature. Untainted by worldly corruption. Your sister will serve the shadowless God willingly, as you should have. Over my dead body again. I reach out with my power, trying to break whatever hold he has on Mira's mind. But the moment I touch her thoughts, alarms start screaming throughout the sanctuary. Guards pour through the doors, weapons drawn. Run, I tell Tobias, not without you, and run! Uncle Valdris raises his pendant and power lashes out like a whip. I barely dodge, the energy crackling past my head to shatter the stone wall behind me. You cannot escape what you are, abomination, he snarls. The twice-born belongs to us. Submit now, and your death will be quick. Counter-offer, I say, calling on the darker aspects of my new abilities. Submit to me, and I'll make sure you have just enough sanity left to regret everything you've done to my sister. The power that flows out of me is cold and hungry, wrapping around the minds of the approaching guards. Their eyes go blank, and they turn on each other with mechanical precision. The sound of steel on steel fills the chamber as they begin a deadly dance I'm choreographing with their terror. Lirale, stop! Mira screams, but whether she's horrified by my actions or afraid for the guards, I can't tell. Uncle Valdris staggers backward, his face pale. Impossible! You haven't had time to master such power. Maybe I'm a quick learner. I advance on him, feeling the hungry darkness coil around my thoughts like a living thing. Or maybe being betrayed by everyone you love makes you very motivated to embrace the monster they created. But before I can reach him, Mira steps between us. Her white robes are stained with blood from the fighting guards, and her young face is streaked with tears. Please, she whispers, if you're really my sister, then stop this. This isn't who you were. You're right, I say softly. The sister you knew was weak, trusting. She believed in the goodness of family and the power of love to conquer all. I look around at the carnage I've created with a thought. I buried her with my own hands. The dead queens materialize around us, their forms flickering with urgency. Child, you must stop, Queen Morwen pleads. Each use of power for violence binds you deeper to the darkness. Soon there will be nothing left of the girl you were. Good, I snap. She was useless. But even as I say it, looking into Mira's terrified eyes, I feel something crack inside my chest. Not power, not anger. Something smaller and more fragile. Guilt. I have to go, I tell her, stepping back from Uncle Valdres. But this isn't over. None of it. I release my hold on the guards' minds, and they collapse like puppets with cut strings. Most are still breathing. I'm not completely lost yet. Mira, I say as Tobias and I reach the chamber entrance. The communion wine. Stop drinking it, please. I can't, she whispers. Without it, the visions stop, the divine guidance. There is no divine guidance. There's only people using you for their own ends. I pause at the threshold. But if you choose to stay here, choose it with clear eyes. At least give me that much. I don't wait for her answer. I can't bear to hear her refuse. As we flee through the corridors with alarms echoing around us, I catch one last glimpse of her through her own eyes. She's staring at the unconscious guards, at the blood on her robes, at the pendant still glowing in Uncle Valdres's grip. And for just a moment, she looks like the little girl who used to have nightmares about monsters. Now she's looking at one, and you're losing yourself. Tobias's words cut through the morning air like a blade as we huddle around our pathetic campfire. 2 days since the sanctuary, 2 days of running and hiding, and he's finally worked up the courage to say what we both know. I'm finding myself, I correct, stirring the weak soup he managed to scrounge from a sympathetic tavern keeper. The old me was naive enough to believe in happy endings. The old you wouldn't have turned a dozen men into unconscious puppets. The old me got murdered by her own family. I look up from the fire and he flinches at whatever he sees in my eyes. Tell me, Tobias, which version is more likely to save this kingdom? He doesn't answer, which is answer enough. We're camped in the ruins of what used to be Lord Commander Thane's family estate, burned out during the unfortunate fire that happened to coincide with my funeral. Another coincidence, I'm sure. Another loyal supporter of the crown mysteriously suffering misfortune right after my death. He should be back by now, Tobias mutters, scanning the tree line. He'll come. I poke at the fire with a stick, sending sparks dancing into the gray dawn. I made him an offer he literally can't refuse. The sound of hoofbeats proves me right. Thane emerges from the forest riding a horse that's seen better decades, his armor dented and his red cloak faded to the color of old blood. He was the youngest Lord Commander in the kingdom's history when Father appointed him. Now he looks like he's aged 10 years in the past week. He dismounts and approaches our fire with the careful movements of a man who's learned not to trust anything anymore. Princess. He inclines his head, a gesture that would mean death if Marcus's agents saw it. I came as your message requested. Did you bring the information I asked for? I did. He settles across from me, studying my face in the firelight. Though I have to say, when I received word that you were alive, I assumed it was some kind of trap. Maybe it is. I smile and he goes very still. But not the kind you're thinking of. I'd sent him a message through carefully chosen intermediaries, former servants, displaced guards, people who had reason to hate the new regime. The message was simple. Meet me at the ruins if you want answers about what really happened on my wedding day. You look different, he says carefully. Death has a way of changing your perspective. I lean forward, letting him see the silver threads in my hair, the faint glow in my eyes. Among other things. The reports said you died protecting guests from assassins. The reports lied. I died because my brother put an arrow through my chest, my stepmother ordered my execution, and my fiancé finished the job with poison. I watch his face carefully as the words sink in. The assassination was staged, Thane, all of it. His hand moves instinctively to his sword hilt. Those are serious accusations. They're also true, and you're going to help me prove it. Even if what you're saying is accurate, I can't simply... I reach into his mind before he can finish the sentence. Not to control him, not yet, but to read the thoughts he's trying so hard to hide. She's alive. Against all odds, all logic, she's alive. And she's asking me to commit treason against the rightful king. But if what she says is true, if Marcus really did murder her, I should have protected her. should have seen the threat coming. She was supposed to be safe, supposed to be happy, and I failed her. Just like I fail everyone I try to protect. God help me, I was in love with her. Still am, even now when she looks like something that crawled out of a grave. Even now when her eyes burn with power that makes my skin crawl. Well, that's actually useful. You blame yourself, I say softly, and he jerks back like I've slapped him. What? For my death, you think you should have protected me. I tilt my head, studying his face with new understanding. You were in love with me. His face goes white, then red. Princess, I would never presume. It's all right, Thane. Under different circumstances, I might have been flattered. I lean back, considering how to play this. The old me would have been gentle, kind, would have let him down easy and preserved his dignity, but the old me is dead. I need soldiers, I tell him bluntly. Loyal men who remember their oaths to the true crown. You were stripped of your command because Marcus feared your loyalty to me. Help me reclaim my throne, and I'll give you back everything you lost. And if I refuse? I let a little more power leak into my voice, just enough to make the air around us feel heavy and cold. Then you'll spend the rest of your short life knowing you had a chance to avenge my murder and chose comfort over justice. It's manipulation, pure and simple. Using his guilt, his feelings, his sense of honor against him. The dead queens are probably spinning in their ethereal graves. But it works. What do you need? He asks quietly. Everything you learned about the new regime's plans. Everything you know about the foreign soldiers camping in our forests. Everything you've heard about what happened to other nobles who remained loyal to my father's memory. He reaches into his travel pack and pulls out a leather portfolio. 15 ships from Kale's kingdom carrying approximately 300 soldiers each. They're camped in 3 separate locations, all within a day's march of the capital. 4,500 troops, Tobias whistles. That's enough to take the castle even if the garrison resists. But they won't resist, Thane continues grimly. Marcus has been quietly replacing loyal officers with men who owe their positions to him. The city guard has been doubled, but they're mostly foreign mercenaries now. He's been planning this since before my wedding, I realize. The invasion was always part of the plan. There's more. Thane pulls out another document. Lord Garrett was found dead in his chambers yesterday. Apparent suicide, according to the official report. But his steward says he was asking questions about irregularities in the kingdom's grain shipments. Let me guess. The grain was being diverted to feed foreign armies. Most likely, Lady Morwen suffered a similar accident 2 days ago. She'd been investigating missing tax revenue. The picture is becoming clearer, and it's uglier than I expected. How many loyal nobles are left? Hard to say, maybe 24 who would openly support your claim. Perhaps 50 more who could be convinced if they thought you had a real chance. And what do you think? Do I have a real chance? He looks at me across the fire. Really looks, taking in the silver hair, the glowing eyes, the aura of barely controlled power that makes the flames dance strangely around us. I think, he says slowly, that you're not the same princess I failed to protect. And I think that might be exactly what this kingdom needs. There's something in his voice, something that makes me probe deeper into his thoughts. What I find there makes my chest tighten with an emotion I don't want to name. He's not just attracted to who I was. He's drawn to who I'm becoming. The darkness, the power, the willingness to do what needs to be done. It calls to something in him that he's never let himself acknowledge. Good, I say, standing and brushing ash off my borrowed clothes. Because the princess you knew is dead and buried. What you're looking at now is something else entirely. What are you? He asks. I smile, and even Tobias takes an unconscious step backward. I'm the monster they created when they tried to destroy their rightful queen, and I'm about to remind this kingdom why you don't bury something with royal blood unless you're absolutely sure it's dead. 3 weeks of recruitment, and we've managed to gather exactly 47 people willing to follow a supposedly dead princess with glowing eyes and a tendency towards supernatural violence. It's not exactly the army I was hoping for, but it's a start. Quality over quantity, Thane assures me as we review our forces from the old watchtower. Most of these men served under your father. They remember what honor means. Below us, our makeshift camp sprawls across the forest clearing like a collection of angry wasps' nests. Displaced nobles, discharged soldiers, servants thrown out for disloyalty, all united by their hatred of Marcus's regime and their willingness to follow me into what's probably suicide. And what happens when they realize their beloved princess has become something that makes hardened warriors cross themselves when she passes? I ask. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Such optimism, it's almost cute. Tobias approaches from the camp, his expression grim. We have a problem. Just one? That's progress. Scouts report movement from all 3 enemy camps. They're mobilizing, moving toward the capital. I close my eyes, reaching out with my supernatural senses. The future unfolds in fragments. Marcus pacing in the throne room, sweat beading on his forehead as he reads reports. Kale's soldiers marching in formation, their armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. And underneath it all, that wrongness I've come to associate with Uncle Valdris and his mysterious masters. 2 days, I say, opening my eyes, maybe less. Whatever they're planning, it's starting now. Then we need to move, Thane says. If we can reach the capital before they consolidate their forces, with 47 people against 4,000? Tobias shakes his head. That's not a battle plan, it's assisted suicide. We're not going to fight them head on. I turn away from the window, my mind already working through possibilities. We're going to do something they won't expect. Which is, we're going to give them exactly what they want. Both men stare at me like I've lost my mind, which, to be fair, is entirely possible. They want the twice-born royal for their ritual, I explain. They want my blood, my power, my resurrection-touched soul. So, I'm going to walk right up to their front door and offer myself as tribute. Absolutely not, Thane says immediately. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for... Who said anything about sacrifice? My smile could probably freeze small animals. I said I was going to give them what they want. I never said they were going to survive getting it. Before either of them can object further, a commotion erupts from the camp below. Shouts, the ring of steel, someone screaming orders. I reach out with my power, trying to understand what's happening. Assassins, at least a dozen of them, moving through our camp with professional efficiency. Not random bandits. These are trained killers, and they know exactly who they're looking for. Stay here, I tell the others, already heading for the stairs. Like hell, Thane says, drawing his sword. By the time we reach the ground level, the attack is in full swing. Our people are fighting desperately, but they're outnumbered and caught off guard. I watch one of the displaced servants, a woman who used to bring me tea when I couldn't sleep, go down with a dagger in her chest. Something cold and terrible unfurls in my mind. Everybody down! I shout. The survivors drop immediately, recognizing the tone of absolute command. The assassins, confused by the sudden lack of targets, hesitate for just a moment. That's all I need. I reach out with my power, not bothering with subtlety this time. The minds of the attackers are like open books, and I start rewriting the pages with violent enthusiasm. One assassin turns his blade on his partner, another begins screaming and clawing at his own eyes, a third drops his weapons and starts speaking in tongues. Stop! One of the surviving assassins gasps, falling to his knees. Please, we surrender. Oh, you're surrendering now? I walk toward him and he scrambles backward across the bloody ground. How interesting. Tell me, who sent you? Can't say. I kneel beside him, placing my hand on his forehead. His eyes roll back as I push into his mind, ignoring his mental defenses like they're made of wet paper. The Regent's gold. Kill the pretender and her supporters. Leave no survivors. Message from Prince Kale himself. Alara and Kale, I murmur, pulling my hand back. The assassin collapses, breathing but unconscious. They know I'm alive. How is that possible? Thane demands. We've been careful. Use trusted people. Because we have a spy in our camp. I stand, looking around at the survivors. Someone's been feeding information to the enemy. The accusation hangs in the air like smoke. Our people exchange glances, suspicion blooming on faces that moments ago showed only loyalty. It could be anyone, Tobias says quietly. A servant who thinks they're protecting the kingdom. a noble who's been bought, or someone who's been compromised in other ways. I extend my senses, reading the minds around me. Most show exactly what I'd expect: fear, anger, confusion, determination. But one mind feels different, clouded, protected. I turn toward Sir Roderick, one of the nobles who joined us last week. He's standing near the edge of the clearing, his hand resting on his sword hilt in a way that looks casual but ready. "Interesting pendant you're wearing, Roderick," I say conversationally. He looks down at the small silver charm hanging from his neck, then back at me. "Family heirloom." "Really?" "Because it looks exactly like the one my uncle was wearing when he tried to mind control my sister." The change in his demeanor is immediate. The confused, loyal expression drops away, replaced by something cold and calculating. "You should have stayed dead, abomination," he says, his voice carrying that same otherworldly resonance I heard from Uncle Valdris. "The Shadowless God has plans for you, but they do not require your cooperation." "The Shadowless God can kiss my royal ass," I reply cheerfully. Then I hit him with everything I have. The power that flows out of me is dark and hungry, wrapping around his mind like chains. But instead of breaking through his defenses, it hits something else. Something that pushes back with ancient, terrible strength. "You cannot break what serves a higher purpose," he snarls, raising his pendant. Power lashes out from it, and I barely dodge the crackling energy. "Maybe not," I agree, "but I can get creative." Instead of attacking his mind directly, I reach out to the unconscious assassins scattered around the clearing. They're not dead, just sleeping, and their minds are much more vulnerable than his protected thoughts. They stand up like marionettes, empty eyes turning toward Roderick. "Kill him!" I command. What follows is brief and messy. Roderick might have supernatural protection, but he's still just one man against a dozen trained killers. The pendant's power flickers and dies as blood pools around his body. When it's over, I release my hold on the assassins. They collapse again, and this time I make sure they stay down permanently. Can't have them waking up and remembering they've been turned into puppets. "Jesus Christ," one of our surviving nobles whispers, staring at the carnage. "Actually, I think we've established that divine intervention isn't really on the table here," I say, wiping blood off my hands. "Anyone else want to confess to treasonous activities? Or can we move on to planning our assault?" Nobody speaks. They're all staring at me with a mixture of fear and awe that I'm becoming disturbingly familiar with. "Good. Thane, get a count of our remaining forces. Tobias, see what supplies we can salvage." I start walking toward the watchtower, then pause. "Oh, and burn the bodies. All of them. I don't want anyone tracking us through necromancy." As I climb the tower stairs, I can hear the dead queens whispering in the shadows. The darkness grows stronger with each use. Soon there will be nothing left of the girl we knew. The price of power is always higher than those who pay it, realize. "Yeah, well," I mutter, reaching the top of the tower and looking out at the distant lights of the capital. "Good thing I'm not planning to live long enough for the bill to come due." But even as I say it, I catch my reflection in the broken window glass. The silver in my hair is spread, and my eyes now glow with constant cold light. My skin is pale as moonlight, and when I smile, my teeth look sharper than they should. I'm becoming something inhuman, something monstrous. And the worst part, I'm starting to like it. The Harvest Festival was always my favorite celebration as a child. Streets filled with music and laughter, vendors selling honey cakes and spiced wine, everyone coming together to celebrate another year of prosperity. Now it's become the perfect stage for religious extremists to execute heretics in the name of spiritual purification. Marcus really knows how to ruin a party. I count at least 200 people gathered in the square, Thane reports, lowering his spyglass. Most are just civilians, but there are guards posted at every exit. "And the executions?" I ask, though I already know the answer from my visions. 37 people accused of heresy, sedition, or loyalty to the old regime. They're scheduled to burn at sunset. 37 loyal servants, displaced nobles, and random citizens whose only crime was asking inconvenient questions, including, if my supernatural sight is accurate, the old woman who used to sell herbs in the market, the one whose thoughts revealed Kale's early troop movements. "We can't save them all," Tobias says quietly. "Even with the element of surprise, We're still outnumbered 10-1. We're not here to save them, I reply, adjusting the nun's habit that will get me close to the platform. We're here to send a message. The plan is elegant in its simplicity. I'll infiltrate the festival disguised as one of Uncle Valdris's religious zealots, wait for the perfect dramatic moment, then reveal myself to the crowd. The shock value alone should be enough to cause chaos, and in that chaos, our people can strike at the guards while I deal with the real threats. It's also completely insane, which is why it might actually work. Remember, I tell our small strike force, wait for my signal. When the crown appears, that's when you move. And if this goes wrong, asks Sir Marcus, not my traitorous brother, but one of the loyal knights who joined our cause, then make sure they remember that someone tried to stop this madness. I pull up my hood, hiding my distinctive silver-streaked hair. Even if that someone was a monster. The festival is in full swing when I reach the square, but the atmosphere is wrong. Where there should be joy and celebration, there's an undercurrent of fear. People laugh too loudly, smile too brightly, applaud too enthusiastically when the religious speakers take the stage. They're performing happiness for an audience of zealots and foreign soldiers. I make my way through the crowd, reading fragments of thoughts. Keep your head down. Don't draw attention. Poor bastards on the platform. Could be any of us next. Princess would never have allowed this, if she were really alive. The execution platform dominates the center of the square, decorated with religious banners and surrounded by armed guards. The condemned are chained to posts, most bloodied from questioning but still defiant. Uncle Valdris stands before them in elaborate ceremonial robes, addressing the crowd with theatrical fervor. "Cleanse our kingdom of the corruption that led to our beloved princess's death," he declares, and the crowd offers half-hearted cheers. These heretics spread lies, question divine authority, and poison young minds with secular thinking. I edge closer to the platform, letting my supernatural senses explore the area. There, Mira, standing near the platform's edge, dressed in white robes that make her look like an avenging angel. Her thoughts are clearer now, less clouded by whatever drugs they'd been giving her. But instead of the relief I expected to feel, her mental voice fills me with dread. She's here. I can feel her presence like ice in my veins. The twice-born sister comes to witness the cleansing, just as the visions promised. Soon the final sacrifice will be ready. She knows I'm here. Worse, she's expecting me. But today, Uncle Valdris continues, we have a special blessing. The pure vessel of divine will has received visions of the kingdom's future. Mira steps forward, her young face serene with fanatical certainty. I have seen the path forward, she announces, her voice carrying clearly across the square. The heretics must burn so that the realm can be purified, but first we must deal with the greater corruption that still poisons our land. She turns, her eyes scanning the crowd until they lock onto mine. Even with my hood up, she recognizes me instantly. My sister lives, she says simply. The crowd explodes into chaos. People screaming, pushing, falling over each other in their panic. Some flee toward the exits, only to find guards blocking their way. Others fall to their knees, either in worship or terror. Well, so much for the element of surprise. I throw back my hood, letting my silver hair catch the afternoon light. Power flows around me like visible heat, and where it touches the platform's wood, frost begins to form. "Hello, Mira," I call out, my voice somehow carrying over the pandemonium. "Miss me?" "The abomination reveals itself," Uncle Valdris shouts, raising his pendant. "Seize the twice-born. The ritual must begin." Guards rush toward me from all directions, but I'm done pretending to be human. Power explodes outward from my position, and every guard within 20 feet simply stops moving. Not dead. I'm not completely lost yet, but frozen in place like statues. I walk toward the platform, and the crowd parts before me like water. Some reach out to touch my robes as I pass, whispering prayers or pleas. Others make warding signs and back away in terror. "You know," I say conversationally as I approach Uncle Valdris, "when I was little, I used to think you were the good uncle, the one who actually cared about family instead of just political advantage." "I serve a higher purpose now," he replies, his pendant glowing brighter. "As do you, whether you accept it or not." "See, that's where you're wrong." I stop at the base of the platform, looking up at him with something that might charitably be called a smile. I don't serve anyone anymore. Not family, not kingdom, not gods. I serve myself. You cannot resist what you are, Mira says, stepping beside her uncle. The twice-born must fulfill their destiny. Your sacrifice will save the kingdom from corruption. My sacrifice? I laugh, and the sound echoes strangely in the square. Oh, sweetie, you have that completely backward. I reach out with my power, not to control or manipulate, but to show them exactly what I've become. The crown materializes on my head, not the simple circlet I wore as a princess, but something else entirely. Silver and black metal twisted into shapes that hurt to look at directly, set with gems that glow with their own inner light. The crown of the twice-born, the symbol of a ruler who has died and returned, who has passed through death and emerged changed. It shouldn't exist. There are no legends of such a thing, no prophecies or ancient texts, but I've made it real through will and power and absolute refusal to stay dead. Behold your rightful queen, I announce, and my voice carries to every corner of the square. Murdered by her own family, buried in unhallowed ground, and returned to claim what was stolen. The reaction is immediate and divided. Some people fall to their knees in worship or terror. Others flee screaming. A few, mostly older nobles who remember my father's reign, begin to cheer. You see how the demon corrupts them, Uncle Valdris shouts, how it turns loyal subjects against divine authority? The only thing I'm turning them against is you, I reply, floating upward until I stand on the platform itself. The crown's power makes the impossible seem effortless. Release the prisoners, Uncle. Your festival is over. Never. He raises his pendant again, and power lashes out like lightning. I catch it with my bare hand. The energy wraps around my fingers like tame serpents, crackling but harmless. Uncle Valdris staggers backward, his face pale with shock. How? He whispers. Because I'm not just twice born anymore, I tell him, advancing slowly. I'm something else entirely, something your little cult didn't plan for. That's when Mira draws the dagger. The blade is silver and black, matching my crown, etched with symbols that make my supernatural senses recoil. She moves with inhuman speed, faster than any 16-year-old should be capable of. I barely block the strike, my hands closing around her wrists as the dagger's point hovers inches from my heart. Mira, don't do this, I plead, looking into her eyes and seeing only cold determination. I'm your sister. I love you. Love is corruption, she replies, pressing the blade closer. Attachment is weakness. The pure vessel serves only the greater good. The pure vessel is being used by people who don't give a damn about the greater good. I twist her wrist, trying to make her drop the weapon, but she's stronger than she should be. They're using you to resurrect something that will destroy everything we care about. The shadowless God will cleanse the realm of sin, she says with absolute conviction. Your death will herald a new age of purity. And what happens to you after I'm dead? Do you really think they'll let you live once you've served your purpose? For just a moment, uncertainty flickers in her eyes. But then Uncle Valdris speaks again, his voice carrying that supernatural resonance. Do not listen to the demon's lies, pure vessel. Complete your sacred duty. The dagger plunges downward. I could stop her, could freeze her mind, break her will, turn her into a puppet just like I did with the guards. The power is right there, eager to be used. Instead, I let go of her wrists and wrap my arms around her in a hug. The blade slides between my ribs, piercing my heart with surgical precision. Pain explodes through my chest and I taste blood on my lips. I forgive you, I whisper in her ear as my knees buckle. The last thing I see before darkness takes me is Mira's face, her eyes wide with horror as she realizes what she's done. Then everything goes black. Death, it turns out, is becoming a really annoying habit. I'm floating in darkness, surrounded by the voices of dead queens who seem to have organized some kind of supernatural intervention. The whole afterlife committee is here, looking various degrees of disappointed in my life choices. 3 times now you have died, Queen Morwen says, her ethereal form more solid here than in the living world. 3 times the realm has pulled you back. But each return changes you more, binds you deeper to powers that were never meant for mortal minds. Yeah, well, maybe if the living world would stop trying to murder me, I could stay put, I reply, though my voice sounds strange in this place between life and death. Child, you must understand. Another queen speaks. Queen Isadora, I think, though all these dead royals tend to blur together. The dagger your sister used was not merely silver and black. It was forged specifically to trap the twice-born soul, to bind it for the ritual that will resurrect the shadowless god. So I'm dead for real this time? No, Queen Morwen says sadly. You are worse than dead. You are becoming the very thing they intended to summon. Each time you die and return, more of the demon's essence merges with your soul. Soon there will be nothing left of the girl who was Lyrelai Valdris. That should terrify me. It really should, but all I feel is cold anger. Good, I say simply. Lyrelai Valdris was weak. She believed in love and family and justice. Look where that got her. It got her the loyalty of good people, Queen Morwen argues. It got her a kingdom that mourned her passing and celebrates her return. It got her a sister who, even drugged and manipulated, wept over her body the moment the deed was done. Mira killed me. Mira was used as a weapon by people who have been planning this for centuries, just as you are being used now, though you refuse to see it. I laugh, and the sound echoes strangely in the ethereal space. Nobody's using me. I choose my own path. Do you? Look around you, child. See where your choices have led. The darkness around us shifts, showing images like reflections on black water. I see the festival square, chaos erupting as news of my death spreads. Thane and our surviving forces fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. Tobias trying to reach my body, screaming my name as guards surround him, and Mira kneeling beside my corpse, her white robes soaked with my blood, sobbing like her heart is breaking. She didn't want to do it, Queen Morwen says softly. In that moment when the blade struck home, her mind cleared completely. She saw what she had done, what she had been made to do. The horror of it broke the last of their hold on her. Too little, too late. Is it? She lives, Lirelai. Your sister lives, and she knows the truth now. What will you do with that knowledge? I want to say I don't care. Want to embrace the cold darkness that promises power without pain, strength without vulnerability. But looking at Mira's tear-streaked face, something small and stubborn refuses to die. What are my options? Return as you have before, changed again, more monster than maiden. Complete your transformation into the vessel they created, and watch as the demon uses your form to destroy everything you once loved. Or, let go, accept true death, and pass peacefully to whatever comes after. Your sister will die, your kingdom will fall, but your soul will remain your own. Some choice. Become a monster, or let everyone I care about suffer the consequences of my failure. There is a third path, Queen Isadora says quietly, but it requires a sacrifice greater than death. I'm listening. Return to life, but without the powers that have been corrupting you. Become fully human again, mortal, vulnerable, with only your own strength and will to rely upon. Face the demon as yourself, not as the weapon it tried to forge. And if I lose? Then you lose as Lirelai Valdris, princess and rightful queen, not as the thing that devoured her soul. I consider this as I watch the chaos unfolding in the living world. Marcus has arrived at the festival with a full company of guards, surveying the scene with barely controlled panic. Kael's foreign soldiers are moving through the crowd, arresting anyone who showed loyalty to me. Uncle Valdris is supervising the loading of my body onto a ceremonial cart. Apparently, the ritual requires my corpse to be in a specific location. And through it all, Mira kneels in my blood, whispering apologies to ears that can no longer hear them. If I go back human, I ask, do I keep my memories? Do I remember what I've learned, what I've seen? Yes, knowledge remains, but power departs. Then I'll be walking into a trap with no supernatural abilities to protect me. Yes, against enemies who have been planning this for centuries, with armies at their disposal and demon-forged weapons? Yes, and my only advantages will be whatever allies I can gather and whatever clever plans I can devise. Yes. I look one more time at the scene below, at Mira's grief-stricken face and Thane's desperate fighting and the chaos spreading through my kingdom like wildfire. Well, I say, turning back to the assembled queens. When you put it like that, how can I refuse? You choose mortality? Queen Morwen asks, surprise coloring her ethereal voice. I choose to be myself. Flawed, vulnerable, probably doomed, but myself. I smile, and for the first time in weeks, it feels genuine. Besides, if I'm going out, I might as well go out swinging. The darkness around us begins to brighten, and I feel the familiar sensation of falling back toward life. But this time, it's different. Instead of the cold power that accompanied my previous resurrections, I feel empty, clean, human. Wait, I call out as the queens begin to fade. How do I fight a demon without supernatural powers? Queen Morwen's voice reaches me just as consciousness returns. The same way mortals have always fought monsters, child. With courage, cleverness, and the help of those who love them. Then I'm gasping, coughing up blood and grave dirt, surrounded by startled guards who definitely weren't expecting their cargo to start breathing again. Well, I croak, sitting up on the ceremonial cart and giving them my best surprise bitches smile. This is awkward. Coming back from the dead without supernatural powers is like trying to fight a dragon with a butter knife. Technically possible, but requiring a lot more creativity than the traditional approach. The guards surrounding my cart are too shocked to react immediately, which gives me just enough time to grab the ceremonial dagger from the altar beside me and roll off the moving vehicle. I hit the cobblestones hard, scraping my knees and elbows, but at least I'm moving under my own power instead of being carted off to some demonic ritual. She lives, one guard shouts, because apparently stating the obvious is a job requirement for royal security. She's supposed to be dead, another adds, which is both accurate and unhelpful. Seize her, shouts a third, who at least has his priorities straight. I scramble to my feet, looking around for an escape route. We're in the castle's outer courtyard, surrounded by high walls and far too many people with sharp objects who want to recapture me. Without my supernatural abilities, this is going to require some old-fashioned problem solving. You know, I call out to the guards, backing toward the stables. Has anyone considered that maybe repeatedly murdering the rightful heir is bad for kingdom morale? The rightful king sits on the throne, their captain replies, drawing his sword. You are an abomination, a demon wearing royal flesh. Actually, I'm back to being completely human, which makes your accusations both inaccurate and really quite rude. A crossbow bolt whizzes past my ear, ending the theological debate. Time to move. I duck into the stables, grateful that my childhood obsession with horses means I know every hiding spot and escape route in the building. The guards pound in after me, shouting orders and generally making enough noise to wake the dead. Which, come to think of it, might not be entirely metaphorical in this situation. I grab a bridle from its hook and approach Midnight, my father's old warhorse. He's supposed to be retired, but one look at his alert ears and bright eyes tells me he's ready for one more adventure. Hey, boy, I whisper, slipping the bridle over his head. Want to help me save the kingdom? He tosses his head and snorts, which I choose to interpret as enthusiastic consent. The guards burst around the corner just as I vault onto Midnight's back. No saddle, no stirrups, just me clinging to his mane like the world's most underdressed cavalry charge. Stop her! The captain shouts. Stop this! I shout back, wheeling Midnight toward the stable's rear exit. We explode out of the building at full gallop, scattering servants and guards like bowling pins. Crossbow bolts fly around us, but Midnight is faster than his age would suggest, and we're through the castle's outer gate before they can organize a proper pursuit. Where to now, boy? I ask, leaning low over his neck as we thunder through the city streets. Can't go back to the forest. They'll be watching all our old hiding spots. Can't stay in the city. Too many eyes, too many enemies. But even as I say it, I realize there's one place they won't think to look. One person who might help me, despite everything that's happened. The Temple of Divine Mercy sits on the city's east side, a modest building that serves the common people rather than the nobles. And unless I'm very much mistaken, it's where they took Mira after her breakdown in the square. The ride takes 20 minutes, with pursuit horns echoing behind us the whole way. By the time we reach the temple, Midnight is lathered with sweat, and I'm fairly certain I've forgotten how to breathe properly. Sister Catherine meets me at the temple door, her weathered face creased with concern. She was my childhood tutor, back when Father thought I needed to understand the common people's faith as well as the nobles' politics. Princess, she whispers, looking around nervously. Child, what are you doing here? The report said you were dead, yes. I'm getting that a lot today. I slide down from Midnight's back, my legs shaky from the ride. Is she here? Mira? Sister Catherine's expression grows even more worried. She is, but child, the poor girl is beside herself. She keeps saying she murdered you, keeps begging forgiveness for sins that weren't hers to confess. They weren't sins at all. She was used, manipulated by people who should have protected her. I follow Sister Catherine into the temple's cool interior. I need to see her. I don't know if that's wise. She's fragile right now, barely coherent. Sister Catherine, I say gently, I've been dead 3 times in the past month. I think I can handle a difficult conversation with my traumatized little sister. She leads me through the temple's simple corridors to a small chamber at the back. Through the narrow window, I can see Mira sitting on a simple cot, staring at her hands. She's changed out of the blood-stained white robes into a plain brown dress, but she still looks like a ghost of herself. Give us some privacy? I ask Sister Catherine. She nods and steps away, though I notice she doesn't go far, smart woman. I knock gently on the doorframe. Mira, it's me. Her head snaps up, eyes wide with terror. No, you're dead. I killed you. The blade went straight through your heart. I felt it pierce. Yeah, about that? I step into the room, hands visible and empty. Turns out I'm really bad at staying dead. It's becoming a problem. She scrambles backward on the cot, pressing herself against the wall. You're a ghost. A demon. Come to punish me for what I did. I'm not a ghost, Mira. I'm not a demon. I'm just your sister. I sit down on the floor across from her, making myself as non-threatening as possible. And I'm not here to punish you. I'm here because I need your help. Help? The word comes out as a broken laugh. I murdered you. I drove a silver blade through your heart because they convinced me it was the right thing to do. What help could you possibly want from someone like me? The help of someone who knows how their operation works. Someone who's seen the inside of their plans. I lean forward slightly. Mira, I know you were drugged. I know they manipulated you, used your faith against you. But you're clear now, aren't you? You can see what they really were. She's quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands again. When she speaks, her voice is barely a whisper. They showed me visions. Beautiful visions of a purified kingdom, free from corruption and sin. They said your death would herald a new age, that your sacrifice would save everyone's souls. She looks up at me, tears streaming down her face. But when the blade went in, when I felt your blood on my hands, the visions changed. I saw what they really wanted. Not purification, but domination. Not salvation, but slavery. What did you see? The shadowless God isn't a god at all. It's something else, something that feeds on faith and fear and the corruption of innocence. They were going to use your death to break the barriers between worlds, let it into our realm. She wraps her arms around herself, shivering. And they were going to use me as its first vessel, my purity, my willingness to serve. It was all just preparation to make me a suitable host for possession. But you stopped them. When you realized the truth, you refused to complete the ritual. Only because you forgave me. Her voice breaks completely. In that moment, when you should have been screaming, cursing me, using your power to stop me, you hugged me. You told me you forgave me. And that act of grace, of love despite everything, it broke their hold completely. I stand up and move to sit beside her on the cot. She doesn't flinch away this time, though her whole body is tense with anticipation of rejection. Mira, I say softly, I need you to listen to me very carefully. None of what happened was your fault. You were 16 years old, drugged, manipulated by people who spent years grooming you for this moment. If anyone bears responsibility for what happened, it's me for not seeing the signs sooner. But I wanted to believe them, she whispers. Even without the drugs, part of me wanted to think I was chosen, special, that I could save everyone. That wanting, that pride, That's what they used against me. Being human isn't a sin, little sister. Wanting to matter, wanting to help, those are good impulses that evil people twisted into weapons. I reach out carefully and take her hand. But now we have a chance to turn those weapons back on them. She looks at me with red-rimmed eyes. How? They're planning something for tonight, aren't they? Some kind of ceremony or ritual? She nods slowly. The summoning of the endless night. They were going to use your death to weaken the barriers, then use your blood and my willing participation to complete the opening. Without both components, they'll try to find another way. Uncle Valdris isn't the type to give up just because Plan A failed. I squeeze her hand gently. What do you know about their backup plans? There's a secondary ritual, messier, more dangerous, but it could work if they can gather enough life force from other sources. Her face goes pale. They were planning to sacrifice the prisoners from the festival if the primary ritual failed. 37 innocent people, including loyal servants and displaced nobles, all dying to feed whatever demonic hunger Uncle Valdris serves. Where? When? Tonight at the old temple ruins outside the city. Midnight during the new moon when the barriers are weakest anyway. She grips my hand tighter. Lear, they have armies. Kale's soldiers, Marcus's guards, whatever creatures the cult has summoned, how can we possibly stop them? We can't, not alone. I stand up, my mind already working through possibilities. But we're not alone. We have allies. People who remember what this kingdom used to stand for. Your rebels were scattered after the festival. Most were captured or killed. Most, but not all. And there are others. Citizens who've seen what Marcus's regime really looks like. Soldiers who remember their oaths to the true crown. Nobles who figured out that foreign occupation isn't exactly great for property values. Mira stands as well, smoothing down her plain dress. What do you need me to do? I need you to help me get word to our surviving allies. Sister Catherine has connections throughout the city. Servants, merchants, craftsmen who trust the temple. We need to spread the word about what's really happening tonight. And then we do something completely insane that might just work. I smile, and for the first time in weeks it feels like the old me. We're going to crash their ritual and remind them why you don't mess with the royal family. Without supernatural powers? Without an army? Without supernatural powers, yes, but not without an army. I move toward the door, energy starting to build despite my exhaustion. Mira, what's the one thing every successful rebellion needs? A cause worth dying for? Close. A cause worth living for. I pause at the threshold. And lucky for us, not being sacrificed to feed a demon is exactly the kind of cause that brings people together.